Ordinary.
Yeah, the right kind.
What do you mean?
How much time you got?
Not this again.
This is CPP Lite, sent over for review by Conspit. It is priced at $640 for 3 pedals and $536 for 2 pedal set. The clutch can be bought separately if needed and is priced at $140. The haptics come pre-installed at no extra cost. They are non-optional, meaning you cannot opt out of these to reduce the price. We'll cover it in detail in the later part of the video. The pedal comes with a plastic base plate in the box. If you want to get an aluminium base plate, it will cost you an extra $135. Then you will end up with 2 base plates. And that is why I think an option to configure the pedal set with an aluminium base plate or no base plate should have been offered. The plastic one feels a bit, well, plasticky, but is adequate for intended use. To provide some reinforcement for the pedals, a thick metal piece has been added underneath it, something which can also be seen on the CPP Apex pedals. There are sufficient holes, so plenty of space for mounting 2 or 3 pedals. This style of mounting can be seen across various pedal sets, and it works great for many people, but I have always preferred slots over holes. I understand that depending on the material, such as aluminium, stress distribution is the main reason why holes are provided. If the base plate were to be made out of steel, then absolutely no reason not to go for slots. I haven't had any issue with pedal spacing, it's just for maximum adjustability, slots are generally better. The heel rest is also made out of plastic and is non-adjustable. The control box will sit underneath the heel rest area, and if you do get an aluminium base plate, you need to move it. And speaking of, aluminium base plate is, well, it's aluminium. That's all that needs to be said. Any doubts regarding flex, creaks or play go straight out of the window. In here, the heel plate has 7 points of adjustment to get the desired angle depending on your seating position. It looks like a new flavor of Toblerone. Extremely good finishing and very well built / machined. I have been using it in the default position and haven't felt the need to adjust it. The entire heel plate sits about 1.5 centimeters higher compared to the pedal deck. On the plastic base plate, the heel rest sits a couple of millimeters down. While using it, I haven't found the plastic one to be at a disadvantage, but having slight lift on your heel plate is always welcome, especially if someone has small feet. Now before we move forward, let's quickly cover the common areas of adjustment. All 3 pedals have 4-point adjustment for pedal force. The higher you go, the more force is required. Faceplate's angle and height can be adjusted, and preload adjustment is available for all 3 pedals. Starting with the throttle, I really did not like it at first because of its resistance. I found the spring fairly weak, and the weird combination of the brake requiring a decent bit of force versus sneezing on the throttle to push it all the way was jarring to say the least. So I reached out to Conspit and told them about this. I asked if it would be possible to have a firmer spring option available, and within a couple of weeks I received it. The details of the original spring provided by Conspit is 2mm by 19mm by 45mm. 2mm is the spring wire diameter, 19mm is the outer diameter of the spring, and 45mm is the length. I measured it at 2.1mm by 19mm by 45.5mm. According to Conspit, the wire diameter was increased by 0.5mm. I measured the new one at 2.6mm by 19.4mm by 43.5mm. This slight change does not seem like much on paper, but the throttle feels great now. When I say it like that, it does not tell you much, so here's a bit of math. In order to find out how stiff this new spring is, we'll use a simple formula for spring constant for a helical compression spring. K is equal to G d to the power 4 divided by 8 d cube n, where K is spring constant, G is the modulus of rigidity, D is the wire diameter, 8 is the geometric constant, capital D is mean coil diameter, and N is the number of active coils. Aside from the dimension change, the number of coils is also reduced by 1. Original spring had 5 active coils, new one has 4. Instead of calculating the actual spring rate, we just want to know how many times stiffer is the new spring. So we calculate K new divided by K old. Formula would be G d to the power 4 divided by 8 d cube n divided by G d to the power 4 upon 8 d cube n. Here G is same and 8 is constant, so they will cancel out. Now the remaining equation is d to the power 4 divided by d cube n divided by d to the power 4 divided by d cube n. For K new, wire diameter is 2.6 to the power 4 divided by mean coil diameter, which we can get by subtracting the outer diameter from the spring wire diameter, which is 16.8 millimeters cube times N, which is active number of coils, 4. Same for K old, wire diameter to the power 4 divided by mean coil diameter to the power 3 times number of active coils, that is 5. Now we simply solve it and the answer comes out at 2.99. 3, if you will. The new spring is 3 times stronger than the old one, or as I was saying, the throttle feels great now. I talked to Conspit about this and they will start including this new one in the box very soon. On to the brake now. Even though my preference for brake has always been very little initial travel, like 10 to 15%, and the remaining part being force based, I have to admit I really like this one. The progressive feel adds a convincing depth. It has lots of travel and feels genuinely good. The sensor in here is rated at 10 megapascals or a max of 10 bar of pressure. For most people that is a lot. I found my sweet spot around 70 to 75 bar of pressure. Compared to a standard load cell pedal, I wasn't able to find any performance gains, but I had an amazing time in rally. It offered a nice amount of control even when throwing the car around. Somehow the travel felt incredibly natural and modulating the brake in twists and turns on loose gravel somehow increased my immersion. Track racing, however, was a different story. While the brake performed really well, I had a hard time adapting to it. I could not get my usual times and was always half a second off on average. I tried to increase the preload, but no luck. That tells you more about my inability to adapt to them rather than the brake's performance itself. There are spare elastomers in the box, and to swap them you undo this ring and the entire thing comes out. Then move the pedal all the way back and this is where the elastomer resides. There is another elastomer in there, but you're not supposed to remove it. You only need to make changes to the elastomer in the front. Also make sure to lube it properly if swapping. Once done, set the desired preload by rotating this knob and recalibrate your brake in the software. And you're done. But the real question is, has it leaked? So far it hasn't, but given it is hydraulic, you can never rule out the possibility. I haven't seen any complaints regarding leakage, but some CPP Evo users did face leakage issues. Conspit revised the cylinder and is taking care of existing customers. Moving on to the clutch, there isn't really much to talk about. It's two-stage and non-linear, the travel is long, and the overall feel aligns with most two-stage non-linear clutches. Also, this is the only pedal which has carbon fiber rods here, here and here. Why? Because it's cool, that's why. Now finally on to the haptics. And like I mentioned earlier, they come pre-installed and there's absolutely no way to opt out of them while purchasing to reduce the overall cost. These are ERM, eccentric rotating mass motors, or rumble motors if you will. It is powered by this PSU rated at 12 volts 2 amps and is included in the box. The motors work quite well and majority of people would be more than happy with these. However, in my memory I remembered Simnet Haptics to be better, so I tested them both again. Both motors were tested using SimHub, where pulse duration is set to 80 milliseconds and strength 100. Maximum strength because it is ERM, and in ERM, amplitude and frequency are linked, or the faster it rotates, the harder it vibrates. At lower strength levels, the motor spins more slowly, which slightly increases response time and makes the vibration feel softer and less immediate. If you want to learn more about haptics, check out this video. Calculating the latency was fairly straightforward. I recorded the haptics and my display using my phone at 240 frames per second, then later analyzed the footage frame by frame on my laptop. When I shift gears, I look at the very first frame where either the gear indicator on the external speedometer or the car's display start to change. From that point, I count how many frames it takes before the motor physically starts moving. Each frame where the animation keeps changing but the motor does not move adds up to the overall latency. Since the video is shot at 240 frames per second, one frame equals 4.17 milliseconds. Here's how we got that number. Formula for frame time is 1 divided by FPS. For practical applications, frame time is often expressed in milliseconds. So the formula now is 1000 by 240, which is 4.167 milliseconds. As I was saying, sometimes the external speedometer updates first, other times the car's display. I always start counting from whichever one updates first, and here's why. Both the car's display and the speedometer are rendered outputs. Their timing depends on the game's render pipeline, internal update order, and the refresh rate of the heads-up display elements. In short, most of the times they don't always update together, and neither one perfectly represents the exact moment the game sends out the actual signal. So in my testing, I take whichever one changes first, because that is the closest possible moment when the game has actually processed the shift. This method gives me three types of results: positive, negative, and zero frames. A negative frame means the motor moved before the visual gear change, which is ideal and what we want because usually visuals have a small rendering delay. So if the motor moves before the change, the delay is as minimal as possible. Zero frame means the motor and visuals move together. Still good, and the latency won't be that much. Positive frames means the motor reacts after the visual change, meaning a slight delay that you might actually feel. In terms of what we actually want, negative is the best, zero is fine, and positive is the least ideal. For some people that delay won't matter, but if you're chasing immersion, every millisecond counts. Now before we look at some numbers, keep in mind that the result will vary with each repetition. But this variation happens within a range, which is why we'll be taking an average of the results. Starting off with the Setto Corsa Competizione, where aside from neutral to first, Conspit delivers 9 negative frames. Quite impressive. Simnet on the other hand delivers 2 negative frames, 7 zero frames, and 3 positive frames. Conspit clearly seems to be offering better times here. In Automobilista 2, both motors took exactly 15 frames to spin, but it is Conspit which delivers 10 negative frames, 1 zero and 1 positive frame. Simnet delivers 3 negative frames, 2 zero frames and 7 positive frames. Once again, Conspit seems to be doing better. Next up, Dirt Valley 2.0 and no negative frame in sight. Both motors either deliver 0 or positive frames, but it is Conspit which is slightly ahead with having more zero frames, though Simnet isn't that far behind. In EWRC, Conspit only got 2 positive frames from gear 3 to 4 and 3 to 2, then 5 negative frames and 3 zero frames. Simnet shows 70% positive frames with 30% being negative. Once again, Conspit is a bit ahead. In iRacing, Conspit once again leads with 11 negative frames and 1 positive frame. Simnet gives a good mix of 5 negative, 4 zero and 3 positive frames. In Le Mans Ultimate, Conspit delivered 7 negative frames, 3 zero frames and 1 positive frame. Simnet delivered 3 negative frames, 5 zero frames and 3 positive frames. And then finally, Richard Burns Rally. Both motors got plenty of positive frames, but Simnet got 9 of them and 1 zero frame. Conspit got 5 positive frames, 2 negative and 3 zero. Again, Conspit seems to be doing a tad bit better. If we talk about mean latency, Conspit achieves negative 8.75 millisecond and Simnet 4.41 milliseconds, meaning Conspit is ahead by 13.18 milliseconds on average across all games tested. It also achieved the most negative frames at 61.4% of the time. Simnet achieved negative frames only 21.4% of the time. When it comes to zero frames, Simnet takes the lead by 4.3%. But again, Conspit takes the cake with the least amount of positive frames at 17.1% and a whopping 52.9% for Simnet. Now you might be thinking that Simnet absolutely got pantsed in the schoolyard, but what if I tell you that is not actually the case? If you have watched this video, you will remember that Simnet uses a high RPM ERM motor, and at times it matched their linear motor, which is not an easy task. On top of all that, the ERM's vibrations were outrageously strong, much stronger than Conspit's. And despite Conspit's vibration arriving 13 milliseconds earlier, it did not feel as immediate. In fact, it felt slower in comparison. When Simnet delivered a strong vibration pulse, my nervous system processed that intensity more readily than timing precision. That created a subjective feel of faster response, even though the data suggests otherwise. And I wanted to get to the bottom of this, but testing threw a curveball, so I'll be diving into this contradiction in a future video. Long story short, both motors are incredibly good and I really doubt anyone will find anything to complain about. If Simnet's ERM can match their LRA, Conspit is undoubtedly good at what it does. Let's talk software. Pedal and haptics are controlled by Conspit Link. For setting up the pedals, it's a very simple process. Press the pedal all the way and click the max to set the final point, then release the pedal and click on minimum to set the initial point. You can also see how much pressure you require for braking. I have mine set to about 75 bar, but sensor can register up to 100 bar of pressure. For adjusting haptics, navigate to vibration And you will find a drop-down menu with Customize, iRacing and Sim Hub. In the Customize option, you can only select one vibration frequency per motor. Don't know why, but don't fret because these are Sim Hub compatible. To set them up, go to Shake It Motors, then Motors Output and enable Conspit from the list and select which frequencies you want in which motor. And then fine-tune the strength in effects profile. Clearly these are not ordinary, but the reason why I called them the right kind of ordinary is because they are not trying to reinvent anything. Just good design doing what it is supposed to do. There's nothing special about it, and yet everything is. They're not extraordinary because they're trying to be, they're extraordinary because they're ordinary in the right ways. I don't know if it makes any sense, but after spending a month with these, they have rightfully earned their place on my second rig. The throttle is firm, the brakes are great, and the clutch is nothing to complain about. Though when I think about it, it would have been nice if it came with an aluminium base plate out of the box. If ifs and buts were candies and nuts.
Then every day would be earned to Donkfest.
The only thing which I disliked about this pedal set was the throttle spring, and thanks to the team over at Conspit, it got fixed very quickly. I have to applaud their receptiveness, and it's stuff like this which shows that a manufacturer cares about the product. All in all, I really like these pedals and they have given me absolutely no reason to complain. That's been it. I've been the Napman and may the downforce be with you.